Hello, hello, hello. This is Gresh from the I Am CEO podcast. I have a very special guest on the show today. I have Mark Boundy of Boundy Consulting. Mark, it's awesome to have you on the show.
Gosh, it's great to be here.
Super excited to have you on as well. And definitely great to have you on. And before we jumped in, I want to read a little bit more about Mark so you hear about all the awesome things that he's doing. And Mark has grown businesses in a variety of industries for 25 years, amassing wide-ranging experience in sales, marketing, new product development, and product management. He helps his clients find, win, and keep more business more profitably. He's led firms to be value and price leaders in a variety of product and service industries. Mark wrote Radical Value: Elevate Your Company and Career by Unleashing the Power Within, Customer Centricity. Boundy Consulting LLC helps its clients find, win, and keep more business more effectively and more profitably. Mark, are you ready to speak to the IMCO community?
I'd love to.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, let's do it then. So to kind of kick everything off, I wanted to rewind the clock a little bit, hear a little bit more on how you got started, what I call your CEO story.
Well, kind of as my bio indicated, I've had a bunch of different roles. I didn't grow up in sales, didn't grow up in marketing, didn't grow up in product management. I grew up in a little bit of each of those. So I got a little bit bigger picture than a lot of people do coming up. And I also got to work in a bunch of different companies in a bunch of different industries. I got lucky to have been laid off in one, during the telecom bust when you couldn't get back into telecom. I had to go to a completely different industry. And that happened a couple of times. So I've been blessed to be cursed by not being able to go back into the same industry or the same job. And that gave me some perspective that a lot of people don't get coming up. And I also, my first big boy job was with a company that was relentless about understanding customer value. And in all my travels since then, I've seen that the failure is really not understanding and selling to the customer value the way this first company did. So Radical Value, my book and my practice around that is all about helping people become better about understanding customer value.
Yeah, I absolutely appreciate that. And I almost say, so many times we forget why we do the things that we do. And it's often to serve the clients and the customers and provide that value. And I love how you have had that experience, because I think so many times, especially in larger organizations, but even sometimes within smaller organizations, you don't realize how the things that you do kind of help to serve the customer. So I love that you have that experience and of course are able to kind of provide that value and help people understand that value.
Yeah, we talk about it and we kind of know it, but we don't really dive into detail. Think about it. The purpose of your company, whether you're a profit or a nonprofit, the purpose of your company is to produce more value for customers than it costs you to deliver. So if that is the purpose of your company, if that's the central mission, let's look at all the metrics you track. Look at the dashboards. Do you know what outcomes your customers are achieving? Do your salespeople? I can tell you, I was a sales performance consultant for the world's oldest, largest, most successful sales training company. And based on the background of hundreds of thousands of individual opportunity reviews, your salespeople, who are the ones tasked with knowing this, don't. So, and McKinsey found that more than 75% of directors on your board don't understand the outcomes your customer achieves from delivering with you. So you don't understand it. You don't track it in your metrics. Maybe there's a problem there.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's why I love, that you work with clients and of course, been able to write that phenomenal book, because I think it puts everything kind of in alignment and kind of maybe clears up that North Star that we all should be looking at to understand why we're doing what we're doing and making sure it's all in alignment. So could you drill down a little bit more so we can hear a little bit more about your book and also how you work with your clients and what that looks like?
Well, because it's about having those uncovering, value delivering conversations with your customer, most of the calories, most of my energy, most of the consulting fees, most of the training is around having conversations. So it sounds and feels and looks a little bit like sales training, but I think that everybody who touches the customer should know about the outcomes your product or service delivers. So rather than sales training, it's everybody who engages. So that's a lot of people. So therefore, that's going to be a lot of the work. But also, that means all of your content, your product training, your lead generation, your pricing, your value-based pricing should also be oriented to value. And you can't really do that well until you've gotten those people to be really good at talking about value with your customers.
Yeah, that's absolutely huge. I appreciate you for talking about that and of course writing about that as well too. Because I almost feel like, and I've had sales jobs where you always hear between sales and marketing, it's always like, well, you should give us better leads, and then we need more leads, and it's always a back and forth. It never feels like it's fully aligned. So it definitely sounds like you have that, for lack of a better term, maybe a holistic approach to how each of those I guess rungs kind of work in alignment to help out the customer.
Yeah, that's a great, thank you for saying that. That's a huge compliment. I thought, I've got this holistic view, and I tried not to put that word in the book, but people have come back to me saying, Mark, this is a holistic view of business. This is the business theory of everything. Think about it. We all kind of know that you want to be customer focused, but there's something about that customer that's really the most important. You don't want to know everything about your customer. You want to know what the customer value is. So value is that magic kernel within customer focus that you really were looking for. And being customer focused is fuzzy, hard to measure, hard to do. But understanding customer value is something that you can do. You can have those conversations. You can measure it. You can measure it with your prices. So it's the clarifying kernel within that fuzzy customer focus that you are always really looking for. That fuzzy picture comes into sharp focus when you say, no, it's about value, not just about the customer.
Yeah, that's absolutely huge because I think it makes it a lot more tangible and makes it more of a target that, you can get the whole team and the organization behind when you can understand this is exactly what the value is. This is how we might be able to quantify it, or this is what it looks like. And I think it helps to of course, be able to try to reach those goals, but also to measure performance in relation to those goals, I imagine too.
Yeah, a lot of people think they know value and it's fuzzy, but when I ask people to define it, you get all kinds of different definitions. So I start the book, I start my work with clients with saying, here's the definition. Remember, your customers do not buy your product. They don't buy your service. They don't buy your features, your benefits. They don't buy your people. If you're a salesperson and say, what does your customer buy? They buy me. No, they buy their own outcomes for their own reasons. So
Mhm.
the value is how badly they want those outcomes. So do they know about those outcomes? Do they realize those outcomes? Do they realize how important those outcomes? Have they thought about the implications of those outcomes? So once you got that definition right, value is the desirability of the outcomes. Now marketing can talk about outcomes and talk about educating people on outcomes. Salespeople can help individual sales, buyer personas understand how that outcome affects them personally and how much they want it. And when they tell you how much they want it, now you've got a really clear idea of what it's worth to them and how much they will pay for it. If you're a CEO and you have a sneaking suspicion that your salespeople are discounting too much, understand the value and you will know whether those discounts are needed or whether they are just a band-aid put on bad selling.
Yeah, that's absolutely huge because I think when, as you said so well, when you start to understand that value and what that looks like, not necessarily for ourselves as salespeople or professionals, but for the client, and what outcome they're looking to have, you can kind of reverse engineer, for lack of a better term, into how that translates to your marketing, as you said, how that translates to your pricing and so many different aspects of the organization.
Gresham, you couldn't have said it better. You're reverse engineering by understanding the customer. And then actually you're guiding the conversation with the customer, talking to them about an outcome that they kind of understood in a vague way, but you're
Mm,
forcing them to write, star, perform in, and play a movie with themselves as the star, with them
mm.
achieving that outcome. And then asking them, tell me more about that movie. What colors, what color clothes were you wearing? How much would you pay for that movie? When you walk them through a conversation that made that movie really clear in their head, now you know what that movie looks like and you know how much the ticket price should be.
Yeah, that's extremely powerful to be able to kind of complete your client's sentences, to be able to understand exactly what they're looking for, and to be able to present that for them. Sometimes before they're even able to articulate that and say exactly what that is. That's extremely powerful.
Yeah, I'm going to interrupt you with a story. Carpet,
Go for
a
it.
client made carpet, commercial carpet that goes into your office floor, and their carpet wears longer. And every customer and every salesperson in every sale could do the dollars per year calculation. If it wears 20% longer, I'm going to charge you 19% more and you'll win, until the competitor drops 2%. But let's forget that for the second.
All right.
But in an office, there's more than just dollars per year. And customers don't think about the idea that if it wears longer, there's fewer replacement cycles. And if there's
Mhm.
fewer replacement cycles, the business disruption around that replacement cycle, because remember, when the carpet comes up, you got to move the furniture out, clean the floor, replace the carpet, move the furniture back in. What happens if that carpet is underneath your 24/7/365 customer service operation? The
Mm.
cost of that business disruption is many times the cost of the carpet. Suddenly, that longer lasting carpet isn't just dollars per year, it's a competitive change. And customers don't get that. They get it, but they don't automatically think that through for themselves until your salespeople guide them through that conversation. Then it's really easy for them to get it. So the trick is getting your salespeople to have that conversation with the customer, to cause the customer to envision that business disruption, to measure the value of that business disruption. And then the value of that longer lasting carpet becomes nearly infinite.
Yeah, that's extremely powerful. I appreciate you for making it, tangible so that we can kind of understand that movie and the communication that you want to have in relation to whatever that true value is, not just I guess the surface level value, but the deep intrinsic value that a lot of times we have as
Sometimes it's
organizations.
easier when you go from the theory to an actual story, isn't it?
Exactly. No, I appreciate it. And so let me ask you this. Would you consider that to be what I call your secret sauce, the thing you feel kind of sets you apart and makes you unique? Is it that ability to kind of see the forest for the trees, so to speak, so that you can actually articulate that, not just for the clients, but for the people that are actually communicating on different levels?
Yeah, the secret sauce is looking deep into that customer's mind and knowing that nothing happens until it's happened between your customer's ears. And then we measure our
Mhm.
success from the customer's brain inward, or from the customer's brain out, and from the customer in. And so our metrics become not how many phone calls did our sales people make, but were they good conversations about value? How much value did they create? That's harder to measure, but that's the right thing to measure. There's, famous quotes: the things that matter can't be measured, and the things that measured can't be, don't matter. Or far easier to measure and get an approximate answer to the right question rather than the precise answer to the wrong question. And I want to help people slow down and understand what they're really trying to accomplish. And then let's put metrics in place to do that, not the easy to measure crap that most of us measure.
Yeah, that's extremely powerful because again, you have that as a North Star and you're working backwards from there rather than saying, oh, we need to have this amount of calls or this amount of, prospects, whatever. You're working backwards instead of the value. So now you have that as the again, the North Star, for lack of a better term, as far as like what you're trying to build and grow the
Yeah.
activities based on.
Yeah. Think about this. Every CEO is bothered by forecast accuracy. Every
Mhm.
sales leader is, but the CEO has to answer for forecast accurately on an earnings call.
Right.
So they really care. And right now, your sales leader forecasts accurately based on their black magic. Like, I get this forecast from the field and then I derate it by 35%, and it's usually pretty close. Or we have a forecast saying at this part of the sales stage, it's 10% likely. So I take all of those deals times 10%. all the deals in the next stage by 30%, all the deals in the final stage by 50%, or whatever your number is. What would happen if instead of that stuff, you had your salespeople say, for this deal, the customer has a 7-digit problem and we're going to solve it with a 6-digit solution? How much more accurate do you think your forecasting is on that? The customer acknowledged a 7-figure problem, or the customer, we think the customer has a 7-figure problem, but they haven't acknowledged it yet. If your forecasts are based on the size of their outcome versus the size of our solution and how sure we are of each of those two things, suddenly your forecasting method changes quite a bit, but they become much more accurate.
Yeah, absolutely. Because you're focusing on the value and that outcome rather than on, the activities or what we think sometimes before we even consider that what it might be worth. So definitely appreciate that. And so I wanted to switch gears a little bit, and I want to ask you for what I call a CEO hack. So this could be like an app, a book, or a habit that you have, but what's something that makes you more effective and efficient?
Early in my career, I was taking problems home and thinking of problems and having arguments with the people in the meeting that I just had, in my head. And I started mountain biking, and I almost wrote a book of the business wisdom of the mountain biker, because mountain biking forces you to shut everything out but the problem in front of you right now. Because if you start thinking about all the different problems, you're going to hit something and get yourself hurt, possibly quite bad. Also, when you're climbing up a real difficult stretch on your mountain bike, you look at it, you make a plan for how you want to climb it, and you work the plan like mad until you can't work it. And then you figure out what your new plan is going to be. And so that discipline of focus on the thing in front of you, figure out what's the most important thing, solve for that, work like mad at it, and then change when you have to. And that's given me that discipline of not trying to keep everything running at all times, but focusing on the moment, focusing on the issue at hand, boiling it down to what's most important, meant boiling business down to the most important thing, customer value. The essence of business is about delivering value.
That's extremely powerful. I love how that translates into, the work that you do and what we've already been, talking about, being able to kind of be present, but be focused on the strategy and the prioritized tasks that need to be done in order to get to where you want to be. So I absolutely appreciate that. And so I want to ask you now for what I call a CEO nugget. So that could be a word of wisdom or piece of advice. It might be something you would tell a client, or if you hopped into a time machine, you might tell your younger business self.
Yeah, I didn't think about this one well enough. I've got a couple of them, but thanks for editing out all this silence here. I'm going to clap when I get started so your video and audio editors can catch the clap really fast.
Perfect.
You want to understand what's the most important and drive towards that. It seems like trite advice, but when you genuinely understand that everything happens, your entire success happens between your customers' ears. And I use this phrase over and over: you can't push a rope. Maybe that's my nugget. You can't push a rope. Your success happens only between your customers' ears, and you can't push a rope. You have to get your success, you have to get your value to exist between your customer's ears, in your customer's mind, and then everything will flow from that.
Yeah, that's extremely powerful. I love that you can't push a rope. And I think once we start to understand that and internalize that, it helps us to get a little bit more focused on what actually moves the needle forward, because I think we can get caught in the minutia and sometimes the things that aren't actually doing that, just to be busy for the sake of being busy, but actually to understand what is truly providing value, and that big impact is absolutely huge.
I'm on this tear lately. I was just texting back and forth with a colleague who's a vice president of sales at a big public company. And she is wrestling with a culture that measures the stuff that doesn't matter, measures activity, measures quantity that's easy to measure rather than quality, which is harder to measure. And she knows that quality is going to get her and her company more successfully. But there's a culture around her that came up understanding the importance of measuring the meaningless minutia. And that's not the way to success. Certainly, we do have to measure stuff, but we can't measure the wrong stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. You have to be definitely focused on the right stuff or you don't end up in the right place. And I think that's absolutely huge as far as,
Yeah.
what you've been able to kind of say and help people do, I think, on a deeper level. And
Yeah.
so, go ahead.
No, I have another story, and I don't know
Go,
if it's going to make us run over.
go for it.
There's a sales team that had of 12 that had access to 2 appointment setters. So every month or so, one of them would call me and say, Mark, I got time for, I've got time to call into your territory and try to set appointments. And one guy was getting all the bonuses for all the calls he was making. And another guy seemed to get all the appointments. Turns out that the metric that they were using to measure the performance of these appointment setters was how many times the phone was called. Mr. Bonus figured out that the call counter tripped at about 1.5 seconds. So he would dial the phone, let it ring once. And even if the person had said, was picking up the phone on the first ring and said, hello, he would hang up at het because he had a bonus to make. He was dialing the phone for bonuses. The other guy had conversations. Which one's going to grow your business? The guy earning the bonuses because you're measuring the wrong stuff, or the guy who's getting your high performing sellers the best appointments?
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
we do that as leaders over and over and over about metric after metric after metric. And we know, yeah, you can game that metric, but I can't think of another one that's easy to measure. And then find the right one that's hard to measure. Measure the
Yeah.
right one.
Absolutely. And I think when we keep it in alignment, understand that that's our organization's purpose, their mission, the bottom line, whatever that might be at the forefront. If we're not doing that, then I think that puts everything into alignment. So no, I appreciate you for telling that story. And so I wanted to ask you now my absolute favorite question, which is the definition of what it means to be a CEO. And we're hoping to have different quote unquote CEOs on the show. So Mark, what does being a CEO mean to you?
CEO isn't just about leadership and getting everybody moving in the right direction. The CEO is about choosing the right direction. And ironically, the right direction is chosen by your customers,
Hmm.
not chosen by the brilliant, wise, all-knowing CEO. It's chosen by the humble, listening, curious CEO.
Yeah, that's extremely powerful. And I love how that comes into like the North Star analogy we've been talking about, because I think when we're talking about the direction, we sometimes think the direction is because we think of X, Y, and Z, but it's largely because we understand what that value is. And we're trying to be at that direction when we're trying to serve our clients.
Yeah, we always used to say before COVID hit, the only constant in the world of business is change. And I think COVID basically told the world, here, hold my beer, because change became bigger and more rapid, and it is not slowing down. We are not going back to normal. We're going back to the first normal, then to the second normal, then to the third normal. Normals are changing faster and more wildly than ever. And I think they're going to continue to change. So you're thinking of a single step change and adjusting your business to the next normal is the failure, because the CEO can't keep up with the changes that we're going to see as fast as your people can, because your people engage with the customers. And you need to have that. You need to change from being the CEO that is the all-seeing visionary to the all-listening leader.
That's extremely powerful, and being able to kind of listen from so many different aspects, as you mentioned, clients, customers, the people that are on the team that are having those direct conversations, being able to kind of take that all in and truly listening to exactly what's to come from that, and then coming up with a strategy from that. So definitely appreciate that definition. I appreciate your time even more. What I wanted to do is just pass you the mic, so to speak, just to see if there's anything additional you can let our readers and listeners know. And of course, how best they can get a hold of you, get a copy of the book, find out about all the awesome things you're working on.
Thanks, Gresham. My book is called Radical Value. So just Google Radical Value, Mark Boundy, and it's on Amazon, the big A, or wherever you buy your books. radical value, or you can get a hold of me at Mark@Boundy Consulting. Boundy is spelled almost like the paper towels, Boundy consulting.com.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. Thank you so much again, Mark. We will have the links and information in the show notes as well, too, to make it even easier to get a copy of the book. But truly appreciate you for providing, so much value to us today and reminding us how important that is to be aware of that, especially during times like this that can be turbulent and ever changing. So appreciate you for all the awesome work you're doing. Appreciate your time again, and I hope you have a great rest of the day.
Thanks, Gresham. You too. Thanks, everybody.